Hi guys! Today on Divas Can Cook, we are making a southern little layer cake. Now my voice is still struggling, so bear with me, but if you like little old-fashioned cakes like this, you are going to love this recipe. Let's go! Okay, first thing we're gonna do is make the cake. All those little thin layers of cake, so easy to make. Here's what we're gonna do. First, we're gonna add some sugar into my mixer here. Can you believe I'm actually using my stand mixer? Like, what? Yeah. And now I'm gonna add in some butter and some butter flavor shortening. Dump that right into the bowl. This makes a lot of batter, so I needed a really big bowl. So yeah, that's why I'm using my stand mixer today, because you guys know I prefer my hand mixer. I just do. Okay, now go ahead and mix this up until it is all creamy and stuff, just like that right there. And then we're gonna add in our eggs. Lots and lots of little eggs go into this cake. I use like 6 eggs, so we're gonna add them one at a time, and we're gonna mix up really well in between each egg, or you can add them 2 at a time if you're impatient like me. Just dump them things in there, honey. And now be sure to scrape down the sides of your bowls really well. And now I'm going to add in a little bit of vanilla extract. You can also add in a little tiny bit of almond extract. That's good too, but I didn't do that. I just added all vanilla extract, trying to keep the recipe as traditional as possible without making too many changes, you know. Okay, so now I have my dry ingredients. I have some flour in a bowl. I'm going to add in some baking powder and a little bit of salt, and I'm going to whisk it around just to get it combined. You don't want to have any little pockets of salt or baking powder. Make sure you whisk it up really good. Okay, that is perfect. Now we're going to add our dry ingredients into our wet ingredients, just like this, a little bit at a time, and we're going to alternate it with our whole milk. I'm using whole milk in this recipe, no buttermilk. And I was kind of bored, you guys. I'm like, okay, the mixer's doing all the work. What do I need to do, you know? But yeah, go ahead and just mix it on up. And your batter will be a little bit, you know, kind of splotchy. That is totally okay. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and add in the rest of that flour. Add in the rest of that milk. My voice is like, oh my God, I should have saved this recipe for when I could actually talk, because this is a long video. My videos aren't usually this long. This is like, what, 8 minutes or something? Jeez. But I can do it. Okay, so this makes about 10 cups. Now you can make 16 layers with this cake. So I'm sitting here trying to do the math like, okay, 16 divided by carry the 1 times 2, 3/4 cup time. I'm like, forget it. You know what? It makes 10 cups of batter. I'm gonna do 10 pans, 1 cup per pan. Easy math, okay? Because ain't nobody got time for all that dividing and stuff, all right? So now we're gonna prep the pans. Here's how you prep the pans. I'm gonna go ahead and just butter them up with some Crisco. Put down a little parchment circle. Butter that up with some Crisco, and then add some flour, because honey, you do not want this cake to stick to the pan. And I went ahead and used disposable pans because it's just easier. You know, they were like $3 for $1 at Walmart, so I'm like, perfect, yeah. Okay, so go ahead and just prep all of those pans. This was my least favorite part of this recipe. I do not like prepping pans. Oh, I was like, I'm not feeling this at all. But I had to just, you know, suck it up, sister. Okay, so I have prepped all of my pans, and so I'm gonna load my batter into my cup just like this right here. Spoon it on in there. That's perfect. And then we're going to just plop it right into the pans. Easy. This is actually a very easy, basic, simple cake recipe. It's like a butter vanilla flavor. Very basic. The texture is kind of like a pound cake. Almost. Not as dense as a pound cake, but you want it to be dense because you have that frosting coming up. All right. So we're going to pop these into the oven, 350 for about 10 to 12 minutes. Doesn't take long at all. While the cake is cooling off, let it sit in the pan for a little bit, and then remove it to a cooling rack to let it finish cooling off completely. Meanwhile, it's time for my favorite part, the frosting. It is all about the frosting with this cake, because the frosting tastes like a hot chocolate fudge. It's like, so good. So to start, we're going to add some butter into a saucepan here. I'm using like a deep skillet. Once that butter has melted, go ahead and add in your sugar. I like to use white sugar and brown sugar, but if you don't have brown sugar, you can totally just use white sugar. You'll be just fine, honey. Dump that sugar into that butter. We're going to stir it up until it starts to look like, you know, applesauce. And next, we're just going to add in a little bit of evaporated milk. I can always tell when I'm cooking with the old recipe, because it's like always evaporated milk in the frostings. Have you noticed that? People loved them some evaporated milk back in the day. Okay, so now I'm gonna add in some unsweetened cocoa powder. Dump that right on in there. I really should have sifted that cocoa powder because, man, I had so many little lumps. I was trying to work out all those little lumps. I was like, my arms are burning trying to get these lumps out. But, you know, I eventually got those lumps out. Okay, so I'm gonna cook this frosting just until it reaches about 234. I think that's the softball stage, right? 234. Yeah, but so I still have a ways to go. So I'm gonna crank up my heat, let it simmer away until it is done and looking all luscious and silky like this right here. There's our finished frosting. Looks good, right? It's like a loose chocolate syrup almost. That looks perfect. Okay, so now I'm just gonna add in a little bit of vanilla. Okay, a nice big old tablespoon of vanilla. And then I'm gonna add in a little bit of, where's it at? Salt. Where's my salt? There it is. Salt. Gotta have salt with that chocolate. You know, it just helps. Okay, that looks great. Go ahead and stir in that salt. And now we're done. The frosting is done. Keep it on low heat because you want this frosting to be hot when you pour it on. There's my first layer going on. Here's my little setup. I got a little pan to catch all those drippings and stuff because we're gonna pour this frosting on just like this, layer after layer. So you pour it on, spread it out, stack it. Easy, right? That's easy because you just do this with all the layers. And the thing about this that I really like, because I can't even talk, because you guys know how I feel about frosting cakes and stuff. This cake right here, it kind of self-frosts itself because the frosting just drips down and it just kind of frosts itself like that, you know. This is my kind of cake, honey. I can get down with this kind of frosting. Okay, so when you get to the last layer, go ahead and just pour everything on top. We're gonna let that set up, and then what I'm gonna do is go ahead and whip up another batch of frosting. Now, if you want to, you can make one big batch and just keep it on low heat, but I just like to do two. Let the first one set up and then make up another batch of frosting, and then just go ahead and pour that last batch on, just like that. So luscious. I love that. It just reminds me of like a little beehive, like Winnie the Pooh. I don't know why. Every time I see a little layer cake like this, I think of like Winnie the Pooh. But yeah, you should be able to see the little layers in there. You don't want to cover those up completely because that's just part of the cake. I think it looks ugly, but hey, who am I to argue with Southern tradition? Okay. All right, so once the cake has set up, you can go ahead and cut it. And I love the way my knife feels going through each layer because you can feel it going through each little layer, and it's kind of, I just like it. It's therapeutic. But yeah, it is done. Go ahead and serve it up. You really don't need a big slice because it's really rich and sweet. It's a special occasion cake. You know, a cake that you make for somebody that you just love. You know what I'm saying? But let's talk about the texture. Now, it's all about the frosting. That frosting really is like a big old-fashioned glass of hot chocolate. So good. But the cake texture, love it, love it, love it. It's so dense, nice, packed crumb, but yet it's still very, very moist and dense and tender, and I just love it so much. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you will know when I post new videos, and also let me know what you want to see next. What dessert do you want to see next? Because it is the holiday season. Okay, it's time for baking, so let me know what you want to see. Later.